What words do dumb people use to try to sound smart? Using words incorrectly, rather than any specific word. You must mean rather than. It's not rocket appliances. Water under the fridge. Denial and error. I once met someone who tried to impress me by using the word anti-disestablishmentarianism in every sentence. Needless to say, I was discombobulated by their awkwardly misplaced attempt at grandiloquence. My coworker is a MF idiot and constantly says the reality is. Followed by something she's dead wrong about, and our bosses always call her out on it. She still does it. The fact is, goes on to state their opinion or something totally subjective. Look, the reality of it is she isn't dead wrong. She's still alive, so ipso facto squid pro rho. Got a chuckle out of me. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that your coworker is correct, period. End of story. I once had a classmate who would always start with "well, fundamentally speaking," before saying something completely nonsensical. It was a real masterclass in pretending to be smart. It's not so much the particular words, because every idiot is different. But what seems to be the same is that they'll latch on to something like per se, and then proceed to just spend the next year making sure it's in every other sentence, incorrectly, and after a while, you'll find yourself looking it up to make sure you're not the idiot who didn't realize the word had many definitions or something. Don't worry, you'll be right, just driven a little mad. I knew a guy who used obviously every other sentence. If it's so obvious, why are you telling me? And why is it taking 10 minutes? 10 minutes later, so long story short, my name is Nathaniel. Obviously. Anyone remember the terrible mom from a post a week ago that wanted her daughter to keep paying rent after moving out? She used the word whilst many times. She was pretty dumb, so I assume this counts. Link to this? I'm in the mood for feeling pissed off. I'll see if I can find it. Best Reddit post of the day. Was she British? Whilst is still used a lot here, it's not quite the same as while. For all intensive purposes. Instead of for all intents and purposes. That's a common r/bone apple tea. Is it though? I often hear people complaining about it, but I've never encountered it in the wild. Hang around long enough. There are terminally online people who have never heard terms or expressions spoken and mispronounce them. That's sort of the opposite, but I think you'll get it. Hello. Want a good laugh? Subscribe and drop your hilarious answers below. We all know those not so bright folks who attempt to sound intelligent with silly words. Let's have some fun together and expose their futile attempts. Enjoy the video. They say I digress every other sentence. As a proud member of the Digressers Anonymous Club, I often find myself unintentionally using I digress as my secret code to let others know that I've run out of intelligent things to say. They say myself instead of me. It's practically a meme where I work. Do you work for a police department? That is incredibly common language among law enforcement. Allow myself to introduce myself. My mother, father and myself went to dinner. This drives me crazy too. I used to work with a guy who would strategically drop the word conjecture into conversations about ordering pizza toppings. It was a majestic display of linguistic artistry. Irregardless. So without regards? With no irregards. No regrets. Regrets, I've had a few. I once knew someone who believed that using the word irregardless would make them sound infinitely more clever, regardless of its actual meaning. SMH. Irregardless, literally, and actually. How TF do you use actually wrong? Not use but just overuse. Actually. The ones who want you to understand how highly intelligent tend to prefer AK Shully, with a strong emphasis on the AK, over actually. My Bill, who knows exactly who killed JFK, has proof that we've never been to the moon, and insists that the CIA is who sells him his meth, told me so. I once encountered an individual who fancied themselves a linguistic maestro, peppering their speech with irregardless, literally, and actually. Oh, how I marveled at their audacious attempt to master the dialect of the intellectually pretentious. Every damn stoner I've ever met uses the word partake. Half of my students thought the definition of partake was to smoke pot. Partake? I smoke enough that it's more double bogey take for me. Do you partake? I've never said partake when talking about the pot grass, but I have said indulge enough to be ashamed of myself. I've been known to partake in the devil's lettuce once or twice in my day. I once crossed paths with an individual who, in an attempt to appear intellectually superior, resorted to the excessively pretentious inclusion of indefatigably as a substitute for the more mundane term tirelessly. It was truly a Herculean effort to conceal their lack of erudition. Synergy. My company, we don't have meetings, we sync. Lots of circling back and touching base, I presume. I leverage those terms if that's what you're asking. You're not a Scrum Master, are you? Once, I met someone who would randomly interject paradigm shift into conversations, and I couldn't help but think their brain was experiencing a serious paradigm malfunction. This question is shallow and pedantic, irregardless of which it literally insists upon itself. For all intensive purposes, it insists upon itself, Lois. Gold. This comment is shallow and pedantic. I once encountered an individual who, in an attempt to appear intellectually superior, habitually exclaimed, indubitably, "Good sir," during discussions about the latest reality TV shows. Valid. Your feelings are valid. I once came across someone who would sprinkle the term ergo into their sentences, as if suddenly they were a brilliant philosopher or something. Laughable, really. It's not one word, but at the end of the day, it's night. Scrubs end of episode voiceover has entered the chat. Turkleton. You think my name is Turk Turkleton? I once met someone who thought starting every sentence with "at the end of the day" would make their views deep, but it just made me hungry for bedtime snacks. Conversate. Reminds me of commentate. I guess that's what commentators do. I'd be okay if they just commented. The same for orientate. Someone is not orientated, but rather oriented. I think the word orientate is an actual word in Britain, but prevented is not. So I hate the term preventative medicine. It should be preventive. Good one. Just say talk. I once encountered an individual who thought sprinkling ergo into their sentences made them sound intellectual. Sadly, ergo it did not. Heard a guy use manifest destiny the other day. He is of the belief that phrase pertains to manifesting one's destiny rather than westward expansion of the United States. I mean, if you look at the plain meaning behind both words, it kinda makes sense. Lamau. I mean, that is what those words mean if you're not an American. I just googled, cause such a common sounding phrase had to have been in use before the Western US expansion. Nope, made up completely by a columnist in New York. I once encountered an individual who genuinely thought that using the phrase synergistic paradigm shift in casual conversation would make them sound intellectually enlightened. Bless their heart. Any $100 university word, as my college writing professor called them, when a simpler, more commonly used word can get the job done. That's indubitably accurate. AKA pulling a Russell Brand. I once had a friend who thought using the phrase superfluous lexicon would make them sound smarter. Needless to say, it was quite ostentatious. Whatever buzzword is going through the media at the moment. Groomer. Whilst it was nowhere, then it was everywhere. Just say while FFS. This words makes me feel I'm hanging with a bunch of gentlemen in the 1700s, fucking hell. We need to have a dialogue about this. I once crossed paths with an individual who thought throwing around the term paradigm shift would grant them unlimited access to Mensa. Bless their heart. From the Food Network, mouth feel and flavor profile. Texture and taste, you pretentious weirdos. IDK. Mouthfeel seems appropriate when talking about liquids. Like how Mexican Coca-Cola feels different in the mouth than American Coca-Cola. Yeah, I don't want my soda to have a texture. I am aware that it's essentially the same thing, but, in this context, texture sounds really unpleasant. Mouthfeel is on a par with moist for creepy words/phrases. Gaslighting. Gaslighting isn't real, you're just imagining again. You made it up because you're fucking crazy. Everyone knows the proper term is gaslamping. Not true. Gaslamping, or gaslampin, is actually the more laid-back version of gaslighting. Just a mild attack on a person's psyche, as a goof. I once encountered an individual who endeavored to appear astutely intelligent by interjecting gaslighting into discussions about puppies and rainbows. Quite the supreme display of rhetorical gasbaggery, I must say. Dumb people really don't realize how easy it is to pick them out of a crowd. It's not the words, it's the speed with which they comprehend anything. I once encountered an individual who thought peppering their speech with ergo would make them seem intellectual. but alas, they only succeeded in achieving eloquent bewilderment.